Welcome to Module 5 project. As usual, do not look at this video until you've attempted the exercises first. So we'll begin here at the top and complete all of these exercises. So exercise 1, create a list with 4 items that are each a different type and assign it to variable A and then output it to the screen. So each a different type. So we can say here's an integer, a float, a boolean, and then a string. Those are all 4 different types. And then we just output it to the screen. All right, exercise 2, verify that list A from exercise 1 has length 4. So we're going to use the len function and just place A inside of it. So there are indeed 4 items. Exercise 3, select the first item from list A. Okay, we just append the square brackets, and then the first item is accessed with index 0. Select the last item from list A. We could either use 3 or -1. I prefer -1 because oftentimes you won't know the length. So we'll just use -1 and retrieve that string Python. Exercise 5, assign the third item in list A to a different value of the same type, and then output the list. Okay, so here is A. It says the third item, so that's index 2, a different value of the same type. So I just happened to choose a boolean. You could have chosen any other type here. The only other value of the same type is false. And then let me just output it to the screen. So I've overwritten the third value with the value false. Let's go on to exercise 6. Mutate list 2 and output both lists. Does mutating list 2 change list 1? Okay, so we have this code written over here. So we're going to take list 2 and let's just mutate the last value here and make it 999. And then we'll output list 1. Oh, I didn't actually execute this. So let's execute this so that we have it in memory first. And then we will change list 2, but list 1 is also changed, and that's because they're both referencing that same list. They're simply just different names for the same underlying list object. So mutating list 2 is just the same thing as mutating list 1. So that is indeed changed. So you could say, you could put a comment in here and say, yes, it is changed. List 7, verify that list 1 and list 2 from exercise 6 refer to the same object. So the best way to do this is with the is operator, and this should evaluate as true. This is how you check whether 2 variable names reference the same object. Exercise 8, in the following code, both list 1 and list 2 are defined to have the same values. Mutate list 1. Does list 2 also get mutated? Okay, let's execute that. So here's list 1 is 135. List 2 is also 135. Let's mutate list 1. Let's change the first value to 99. And then look at list 2. That will remain unchanged because it's a completely new list that has been defined. It just happens to have the same values. So they have nothing to do with each other. They are not referencing the same object, and this exercise we just verify that they are not the same object. So the is operator is used again, and we can see that it is false. Does the identity of a list change after it is sorted? Use an example to determine the outcome. All right, so let's make a list here of an unsorted list. Okay, so here is our list. And let's get its ID. So there is the ID. Now I'm going to sort the list and output it to the screen because just so that we can see it like this. So I've sorted it, and now I'm going to look at its identity again. Now, did the object change location in the computer's memory? No, it did not. The object stays in that same place. It just has different values, right? The order has changed. So that's all that matters. It's still the same object. It just looks a little bit different. All right, exercise 11. Create 2 lists of different lengths and assign them to variables A and B. Use the plus operator to concatenate the lists and assign the result to variable C and output it. Okay, let's just do that first. Create 2 lists of different lengths. So we'll just make it simple. 1, 2, 3. B is 4, 5, 6, 7. And then C will be the concatenation of A plus B. Okay. And output it. Let's output that. All right, so we've created C is this entire list, 1, 2, 7. And it says reassign the first value of C to something else. Okay, let's do that. So C 0, 99. Does list A also get mutated? Okay, so let's just mutate C. We change the first value. Now, does that change A because we concatenated it? Well, no, A is a separate list. Just because we added them together doesn't mean it gets, it's not part of C. C is a brand new list object, completely in another location in your computer's memory. So they are no longer, they're not attached to each other. They don't have any, reference to one another. Exercise 12, create a list and then extend, and then use the extend method to add items to it. Okay, let's just do this again. Here I'll create a list of strings, Python, Java, Go. So that is a list, and then I can extend it with maybe another list of different programming languages. So maybe C, C++, and Fortran, something like this. So I'm creating a list, and then I'm calling the extend method on it. So when I execute this, you won't have any output here because extend operates in place. So I have to put A in its own cell and see that it has indeed appended 3 items, and it's these 3 items in that list to the end. Okay, so that's how extend works. 13, create a list of 3 items and assign it to variable A. Concatenate to itself 4 times. So let's, we can make a string here, A, B, C, or a list of strings. And now I will concatenate to itself 4 times. So just multiply by 4. So it's that simple. The multiplication operator, pretty nifty with lists. It allows you to do this. 14, create a list containing 3 inner lists. Replace the second list with a reverse of the third list. Okay, this is really a little more challenging. Okay, so create a list containing 3 inner lists. Okay, so I'm gonna have, let's see here. Let's make it as simple as we can. So we're gonna create a list with 3 inner lists. Let me create it first, and then let's see what happens here. So here is my whole list. The first item is a list by itself, right? So that's one list. The second item is another list. The third item is yet another list. So it is a list of 3-item lists. So let's go ahead and look at this. Now it says replace the second list with a reverse of the third list. Okay. So the second list is this one. So we're going to replace 4, 5, 6 with the reverse of the third. That's 9, 8, 7. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this list, we're going to replace it. That means we need to use an assignment statement. We're going to overwrite it with a reverse of the third. So the third is in position 2. So, but we need to reverse this list. So how do we reverse it? Well, one way is to use the trick of slice notation, : : -1. So I know this is a little weird. So this selects the last list, right? So that gets this 7, 8, 9, and then I'm just using that slice notation in order to reverse it. So start and stop are not there, but we use a -1 of a step size. So I'm going to overwrite 4, 5, 6 with a new list 9, 8, 7. Let's go ahead and do this and look at it, and that has done it. Now the third item is still the same. That was not changed. It was just the second item that was replaced, which was a list. Moving on to 15, use a method to find the index of the string Python in the following list. So here we have a list of 4 strings. If we want to figure out, okay, where is Python in here? Well, we're just going to use the index method. And we will say, where is this string? And it should say 2. So that is index 2, which is the third item. 16, create an empty list and assign it to a variable. Let's do that first. So to create an empty list, you just start the brackets and end the brackets immediately. So this is a list with no items in it. Append the string Python to it. Then call the extend method and pass the string Python to it. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. So we're going to append Python to it, and then we will use extend with the same input like this, and then we will output it to the screen. So this is kind of bizarre. Okay, what has happened? So let's walk through this. Append puts one item, puts the whole item, this entire string, at the end of the list. So there were no items in the list, so it becomes the first item. Extend, if you recall, must take in an iterable, so an object that goes from one item to the next. And a string isn't iterable because we can go from one character to the next, to the next, to the next. And so what it does is it just appends each character at a time to the end. So that's what extend does. It's kind of funny when you pass it a string like this. It's not very common, but it does just extend the list by one character at a time. So now we have a list with many items, not just one or two items. We have this string Python, then the character P, the character Y, and so forth. 17, can a list with only booleans, integers, and floats be sorted? Okay, let's see if that's possible. Does it even make sense? Let's put in some value like 5, true, 9.7, false. So we have one of each. We have an integer, we have a couple booleans, and a float. So how can we sort this list? How does Python do this? Let's see. Let's call the sort method. And let's see, do we get an error? No. So it has worked. So it's sorted as false, true, 5, and then 9.7. You have to recall that Python treats false and true as 0 and 1. So it can sort this. It knows how to sort this because it just treats them as numbers. 18. Select the items with even indexes from list A as a new list. So I want to get index 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so forth. The way to do this is using a step size of 2. And we're going to use slice notation. And there's no start, there's no stop. So it's going to go from the beginning all the way to the end, stepping by 2. So it's : 2. And that will select all of the even indices. 19. Is the string py an element of list A? Okay, so just looking at this, I know it is not an element. We have two elements or items, same thing, in this list. And the way to check membership is with the in operator. So we're going to say, is the string py in A, like this, and I will execute this, and it says false. So pi is not an element. It is the whole word Python is in this list. Now, 20 will give us a different answer. Is the string pi a substring of the first item in list A? So here's the first item. Is it a substring of this first item, this string Python? Well, it is. Let's first get this first item. So it is just the string Python. And then we will use the same in operator. So we'll say, is pi a substring of A, or the first item? So is pi a substring of Python? Well, that is true. 21, assign an empty list to variable A, then multiply this list by 1,000 and find its length. Okay, so let's create an empty list. So it's very simple, just open and close square brackets. Just to show you, the length of A is 0. There are no items in here. But we need to find the length of A multiplied by 1,000. Well, if you multiply a list that's empty by 1,000, well, you just get an empty list. So doesn't matter. It's like multiplying something by 0. Doesn't matter how big of a number it is, it'll always be 0. So the length of an empty list times 1,000 is just 0. 22. Use the character A to separate and join the following lists to reveal the magic word. Okay, so if you recall, there was a section on joining strings in a list. You had to start off with a string. So in this case, our separation character is A. You don't have to assign it to a variable first. You can just create the string A, and I haven't shown this before, but it's good to know. You can actually use dot notation here like this. So you can say A dot join magic word like this. So what you do is you pass in a list of strings, and then it will put this as the separator, as the joining object, really in between each one of these items in the list. And we get abracadabra. All right, great. 23. Concatenate the following list into a single string. Use a separator that will make a valid English sentence. So you have to figure out, all right, so what is the word that is missing? Or maybe even letters. So we're going to use the same thing over here, except it looks like it's E. He rode the bike twice, and maybe a space in there so that we can also separate these words. So what this is going to do is going to put an E and a space after each letter and then just combine them all together. So we'll do the same thing, the join method, pass in the list of strings, and then he rode the bike twice, like that. Okay, great. 24, create a new string that inserts the word is after the string Python in the following string. Okay, so this has nothing to do with lists. So this is just some review on strings. We have to figure out, all right, how am I going to do this? Maybe it does have to do with string or lists. Is after the string Python. So you have to figure out the Python programming language. Fantastic. So it's like missing the word is right here. Okay, so this is kind of hard. So what do we do here? We need to figure out this location right here. Where is the end of Python? So strings do have an index method as well. And we can say, all right, where is the index Python? So it's at 25. That's where it starts. But really, we want to go to the end. That's where this first Python is. That's where the P is. So we need to go to the end. So the length of Python itself is 6 characters. So we really need to go to the 31st. So 25 plus 6 is 31. So if we use slice notation, we can do this, and maybe we want a space after it too, just like that. And then we can use we can concatenate strings. So we can say, all right, is, we can sort of like insert it like this. The Python program, the programming language Python is, and maybe a space over here as well. And then we can add in from 32 to the end, like this. Okay, so we're gonna just slice to 32. So it's like, all right, we're gonna cut it off at 32, which really is right here at this space. We're going to concatenate is in a single space. And then we're gonna add in the end, which is just this word fantastic. So that's one way of doing this. Notice this is not changing the string at all. All this is doing is adding together substrings, and this creates an entire new string. All right, another string exercise. Replace all occurrences of the star with O. So you see the star over there. Looks like it's replaced with O. You will be able to read this. So there's a replace method. That's pretty Simple. So you just start with the old character and then replace it with a new character. So we're going to replace the star with an O. This was covered in the last module on strings. Now we have the sentence: on July 20th, 1969, astronauts landed on the moon. Okay, great. So that does it for all of the exercises in this project.